comments came up on the questions board yesterday. Could we have some more info on the longer journey so we can plan ahead? And also, in a lot of the conversations I've been having, and all of us have had around the patch, has been, help us put these bits together. There's lots of detail, but what does it look like? And can we try and find a way to put it together? And those of you who know us from the Leicester side of things, we tend to draw pictures. It's our way of doing things. So this is an attempt to try and get the next, sort of to the end of a year hence, really. This is 18 months worth of stuff. On your table you have a paper, one or a few paper copies. We haven't got a huge amount. And the photocopier went a bit purple on us, so it's not the greatest of copy, but we can send you electronically a much nicer version of this. If you are at the back and you can't see anything, by all means, we're going to talk for about 10 minutes. If you want to stand up and come closer, please do, because I'm just going to chat my way through, just going to work our way through what's where, so that you have a clue what we were trying to do as the themes of this, and then you've got a chance to process that later. So overall, it's worth noticing this is year one. Okay, this is starting here. 1, 2, 3. These are the cluster gathers. Last time, now, November, December, March. So that is the end of this year. Year one is about the end point. Somebody questioned about purpose. Year one ends up with one missional challenge for your church. That's where we're heading to. So that's the point we're aiming at in this year. Year one has a theme of listening. Year two has a theme of experimenting and learning. And you can imagine there'll be more bits of paper over here in years to come. So that's that side of things. Surrounding everything we do, you might not be able to read it, is dwelling in the Word. The banner that runs around the whole piece. And at each stage we will dwell in every way as we've just reflected upon. Coming down here, the names in the little ovals here are the who does it piece. So the top layer are the community, that might be the church community, your local community, who is involved. There's a steering team chunk. I put the data person in as a chunk because I felt that they kind of needed to know what their role was. Listening leaders, the reading team, and spiritual leaders, you're right at the bottom. You're scooting along the bottom here. And then a new team pops up over here at the, as we come to towards the end of this year, and I'll talk you through that to give you what's coming. Running across the top, there are red squares here. Red squares are big event type stuff. Timeline event. There's a thing called corporate spiritual discernment. We're going to learn loads about that today. That's the next big chunk from this cluster before the next cluster. And then following cluster 3, this is your heads up of what's coming, get your diaries sorted. Church Council Away Day needs to happen after 3 and before 4. So that's a chance to think about who might need to be involved and get some dates in your diary. You'll also notice that on the clusters, occasionally little bubbles pop up. That tells you who else might need to be in the cluster. Church Council and then the Mission Innovation team, who are this lot, pop up at that cluster. So that's the shape of that. Other things to notice in the coding of how I've drawn it. Green bubbles are tasks, things to do. And coming out of green bubbles are often little reports. This is my symbol for a report. It's a tangible thing. If it's got a little kind of box that looks like a pile of paper, that's a thing you could pick up and get hold of. So that's so the signal there you've got is timeline happens, you create the report, there it is. Ditto, other reports pop up. Other bits of coding to notice, you've got data goes into a computer, and if you look very closely it tells you which windows you put it in on the CFF as well. So you can see there are numbers happening. There are interviews. Congregational interviews, listening leaders, you've done that. Some of you have started already, community interviews. Some of you still working, that's to come. But that goes into another box, and then the last bit of CFF happens there. So that's the kind of shape of what the different bits mean. So we've got as far as here. So you have done timeline event, created a report, input some data, done the congregational interviews. The reading team have created their stuff, so that went to there, which went to a conversation between a listening leader and a steering team, which has got back to possibly the steering group, depending on your timings. That's the now. hopefully. You'll notice these lines mean your work is done. So, thank you very much, reading teams. Thank you very much, listening leaders. That's the end of that phase for them. We're now here. Next stuff that happens. Community interviews. This timeline report needs to morph into something shorter, a summary. We talk about executive summaries. That's a thing to do as a steering team. The congregational report, the output from the listening leaders piece, needs to morph into a smaller summary. The CFF, all the last bits of data go in. You've got a bit more to do, data person. Your work is not yet done. Nearly, but not yet. And that goes into a summary. So you end up with a series of documents which leads into the conversation that you're going to have before the next cluster. Coming out of that conversation is a report on the gifts for mission in our church. That's what happens between now and the next one. After 3, you've got the way day, and 2 things happen. One is it's an opportunity. You're a year down the road, we're a year at that point. It might be time to consider who's on the steering team. That might be a chance to review that. But also to set up a mission innovation team who start to pick up some big pieces of work after 4. So that's just giving you the key points of what's the journey ahead. Phew. So that's the shape of it. I'm not going to take questions because there's a lot of detail. What we are going to do is leave it around. Please come and talk to us and ask questions and say things. Just a couple of bits to flag the even bigger journey, I think. Just to say that when we get into year 2, some words you'll start to hear, because they're the things that almost are part of this. The next phase will be plunging and hospitality. And I'm just going to let those words stay with you. We're thinking about what that might mean. So hang on to those 2 ideas. And the other thing to notice is that the red squares, which are the big events, the next big event after the Church Council one happens around cluster 6. So there's a bit of a gap in terms of the big events, just to let you know in terms of thinking ahead for the next year or 2. That's kind of how it plays out. Okay, that's that piece. Second thing to talk to you about